grocery getter can really move. 1963 Studebaker Super Lark
R2.
And this thing might look like grandma's grocery getter, but I can assure you it's not. And it all starts in the engine bay. Up front, you'll find 289 cubic inches of pure Studebaker power, and the compression ratio was 9:1. You might be wondering, well, where's the power if this thing's only a 289 with a compression ratio of 9:1?
Have you checked your vitals? Get up.
Well, what you'll find is that slightly lower compression ratio was absolutely necessary because from the factory, this thing came with a Paxton SN60 supercharger putting out 6 pounds of boost. Not to mention all Studebaker V8s came with forged steel cranks, connecting rods, and rockers, and all of them had solid lifters, gear-driven cams, dual-point distributors, and this one's got a Carter 625 CFM carburetor. And with all those goodies, Studebaker rated these things at 289 horsepower at 4,800 RPM and 303 pound-feet of torque at 5,000 RPM. And are those the most impressive numbers for the era? Well, no, but keep in mind, this car is very light. With driver, it's only 3,436 pounds, so you better believe that this Lark can really get up and go. I guess you could say that this stewed tomato makes its opponent see red. Let's take a look inside. You'll see that this thing has a 4-speed manual transmission. Specifically, it's a T10 from Borg Warner, and you could get an automatic transmission that year in this car, but come on, this is definitely the cooler option. Speaking of cool, the owner of this car is Mr. Ted Harbit, and he's got to be around 86 years old now, and yeah, he's still drag racing.
And I'm still having a ball with it, just like I did 40 years ago.
But I guess that's what you do when you're in your 80s and part of the NHRA Hall of Fame. Oh, silly me. Did I forget to mention that earlier? That, he had participated in the NHRA Stock Class Nationals back in the 1960s and early 1970s. And out of the 11 years that he raced, he won the Nationals 7 times. Boss!
Snoop Dogg.
Out back, this car is just as impressive as the rest of it because you're looking at a Dana 44 and the last I knew, a Studebaker twin traction differential with 455 rear gears. The Super Lark R2 was a pretty good deal back in 1963. The base Lark started out at $2,315. The Super Lark R2 package, which included the supercharged engine, front disc brakes, heavy-duty suspension, heavy-duty cooling, and a 160 mile-per-hour speedometer, well, that set you back $680. Not to mention the 4-speed manual was another $146, and the twin traction rear was $30. And so with that, you're looking at a grand total of $3,171, and adjusting for inflation, that's around $28,155 today. Car Life magazine tested a Lark R2 back in June of 1963. It was equipped with a 4-speed manual transmission and only had a set of 331 rear gears, but it was still able to muster a 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds and the quarter mile in 16.2 seconds at 87 miles per hour. The Super Lark R2 was pretty rare back in 1963. Studebaker only produced 53 of them, and that makes this car about as rare as an Instagram influencer who doesn't look like they're about to swallow a hot dog. 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle
Heavy Chevy.
Or as I prefer to call it, the Thunder Thigh Chevy. The Thunder Thigh Chevy was a package that allowed you to get a big block Chevelle, but without the premiums of the Super Sport package. And in fact, this was over $300 cheaper than a similarly equipped Super Sport car. And that $300 is going to buy you a lot of lube, which you're going to need after looking at this bad boy. And what exactly do you get with the Heavy Chevy package, which was produced only from mid-1971 through 1972? Well, you got a domed hood, hood pins, blackout grille, those absolutely awesome graphics, a set of 14x6 rally wheels without trim rings, And then in 1972, there were no bucket seats available. It was a bench seat only. And if you notice, this car is even more bare bones than that. It's a radio and heater delete. There were 4 different engines available in the Heavy Chevy: a 307, a 352 barrel, a 354 barrel, and like this car, the 402 big block, which had 2-bolt mains, an iron crank, and compression ratio was only 8.5 to 1. But it still managed to put out 240 net horsepower at 4,400 RPM and 345 pound-feet of net torque at 3,200 RPM, which are pretty impressive numbers for 1972. You can still get a 3-speed manual transmission in the Heavy Chevy, and of course the 4-speed was available, but this car has the 3-speed automatic, that being a Turbo 400, which was reserved only for the big block cars. The small block cars, well, they got the Turbo 350 instead. Outback is a 12-bolt rear, and standard gearing was only 273, but of course this car's been upgraded, and it now houses a set of 4 56 rear gears, and you better believe that's going to allow you to beat that meat. Tire meat, of course. The Heavy Chevy was essentially a stripper model of the Chevelle, and therefore quite a bit lighter than the equivalent Super Sport. This car with driver is only 3,864 pounds, which is pretty impressive for a Chevelle from 1972, but it still gives a 400-pound advantage to the Studebaker. If you were looking to purchase a Heavy Chevy back in 1972, the V8 Coupe started out at $2,807. Heavy Chevy package was another $145, and then of course you had these other options. That gives you a grand total of $3,391, and adjusting for inflation, that's around $22,147 today. The Heavy Chevy sold all right in 1972. Chevrolet produced 9,503 in total, but why don't we check out what old Thunder Thighs can do on the drag strip? At the time of filming, the temperature was 70 degrees, humidity 20%, elevation 754 feet, and the barometric pressure was 29.35 inches. Let's check out that first round.
Ted Harvick here on the VP side, Troy
And the Chevelle had a great launch, holding on to an early lead and taking the win while running a 13.12 second quarter mile at 101.28 miles per hour. Meanwhile, in the other lane, the Studebaker ran a very impressive 13.21 seconds, but that trap speed of 114.21 miles per hour tells me that this thing can run a little bit quicker, so let's see what happens in round 2.
Troy Thiessen, the 72 Chevelle 402 motivated, Ted Harvick's 63 Super Lark.
Because the Chevelle got a red light, the Studebaker gets the automatic win, even though they didn't really need the help. That Super Lark ran the quarter mile in 12.70 seconds at 114.47 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the Chevelle ran a 13.78 seconds at 100.29 miles per hour. And with this best of 3 tied at 1-all, let's check out that final round.
The car's about the loudest thing here. Troy Thiessen, 72 Chevelle over there on the far side.
And in the final round, the Studebaker shows the advantage of a supercharger, chasing down the Chevelle and taking the win while running a 12.70 seconds at 116.01 miles per hour. And in the other lane, the Chevelle looked good, but not quite good enough, running 13.14 seconds at 101.88 miles per hour. A huge thanks to both of the owners for bringing out these cars. It was absolutely awesome to see them flying down the drag strip.
And I'm still having a ball with it, just like I did 40 years ago. I don't know how many more years I can do it, but as long as I can do it, I'm going to keep coming because we really enjoy it. It's so well organized, and we really appreciate these guys putting it on because it gives us something to do.